morning, everyone. Welcome to this morning's session of the 7th Annual Google Camp Conference. My name is Mindy, and I'll be your moderator tech for this session. I'm here to provide virtual support for both you and the presenters. And if you have any questions, need assistance with the Zoom interface, you can search for moderator in the chat and direct message me, and I'll do my best to provide assistance. Today's session is EduProtocols, Smart Start to Learn, Mastery over Time in Any Environment. And our presenters are Jennifer Goodman and Lisa Chavez.
All right. Well, this is my good friend, my best friend, Jennifer Goodman. And everyone needs to have a Jennifer Goodman in their life, because if you hear about all the crazy things that I've done, I have run that crazy idea by Jennifer first, and she always tells me to go for it. So find your people. And she's a former Apple genius and member of our district impact team. And yeah, go ahead, Jen.
Well, thank you, Lisa, for the introduction. This is my best friend, Lisa. We worked together at Kingston Elementary for a few years, and man, we were having fun together. What I love about our friendship is how we taught together. We were crazy together. I had my 6th grade, you had your 3rd grade. We did crazy things with them together, and then you ended up moving to online. So like, you're even more crazier than me now, I think, to teach online, but I'm loving it because like I've moved on to middle school. I'm teaching 7th and 8th grade, and you're doing online 3rd and 4th grade, and we're still bouncing ideas off each other and just being crazy, just at different locations, but it's still so much fun. So I really appreciate you. I miss working with you every day, but it's okay. All right. So
oh, I also wanted to share, everyone, IAQ. So you can also find people through IAQ and learn about different programs. But ever since I joined Q, I love networking with other people, different ideas on Twitter. And so I just want to put that shout out to join Q. And IAQ is for Riverside and San Bernardino County. So. All right, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so a lot of the resources we're bringing to our session came from the books. Obviously, we started with the books. I'm in my 6th year of teaching. I just finished my 6th year. And a few years in, I had moved up to Hesperia Unified School District, and I felt a little bit lost because the curriculum didn't seem like it was very streamlined. And then my team was amazing, but we all did our own thing. So I had these really crazy ideas, and I had not met Lisa yet, but you know, I had these crazy ideas, but I kind of felt a little lost. So I went to a through Q, I went through a Rockstar camp, and that's where I met John Carippo and Kim Bogie and Marlena Hepburn. And I've just like, my mind has been blown. My teaching life has changed. I feel like I opened the doors to my world. I was actually able to teach the way that I felt like when I worked at Apple, how everything was just so innovative. And then I went to the classroom and everything was just so like, here's the textbook, here's the paper, we'll do the next thing. And it was kind of like, well, this is boring, you know? So I was like really excited and energized when I found the EduProtocols. All these books are links. I would recommend that you start with the first one. It gets a really great introduction. And then if you want to know the more of the research that happened to join in with EduProtocols, Dr. Sunny Magana, he was doing his own research on student learning and achievement with technology. And his research and EduProtocols eventually found each other. It was amazing. It was like, EduProtocols are great, and you would see it in action and you're like, this is something really good. And then when I was reading Disruptive Classroom, it was like, wow, this is really important. And it was almost like the disruptive classroom technologies found an application, like how to do the things he was talking about. It's a lot of it is through EduProtocols, and it was just like this really neat serendipity situation. So today's presentation, our goal is to first know what we're doing, like why are we teaching, what are we teaching? So we're going to break down a standard into concepts and skills. We're going to sequence the concepts and skills into a flow of lessons. And then we'll check out some smart starts using EduProtocols and adapting them to any environment. So any questions yet? Does everyone have the session link? We're good to go. Okay. So breaking the standard into concepts and skills. John Hattie, in one of his research things, was on teacher clarity. So when I was learning about John Hattie and all of the analysis that he had been doing with his, analyzing just different parts of the classroom, teacher, home life, strategies, just all the things. One thing that really stuck out to me was teacher clarity. So his baseline effect size is a 0.4. So he's saying at a 0.4, you get about an average year's growth. It's good. It's not like super fantastic, but it's a year's growth. So that's great. And then anything below a 0.4 is like, well, it doesn't really affect learning as well as something at a 0.4 or above level. So with his research, he found that with teacher clarity, when the students know what they're learning, when the teacher knows what they're teaching and they're able to, communicate that information to the students, the teacher clarity effect size is a 0.75. So that's more than a year's growth, right? So it's a really great area to start for me as a teacher, something I can control, which is what am I teaching and how am I going to make sure that my students are understanding what I'm teaching, where we're going. During the pandemic, when we had to shut everything down, I found John Hattie's distance learning playbook, and it was pretty awesome. It touched on, our purpose as teachers and, our purpose of school and the different standards that we would want to really focus on at the times that we were shut down. And one of the things he referenced was another book he has called the Teacher Clarity Playbook. And this one blew my mind because I felt like with our, the textbooks that our districts are purchasing, they have a lot of really great resources, a lot of great information. They're getting very super techy with the computer websites, and you've got videos and links and all these different things. But as a teacher, for myself being a newer teacher, I was kind of feeling a little lost because a textbook that's purchased in California can also be purchased in another state, because they're making sure as a company to include as many, to cover as many state standards as they can, so that they just have to make, just one edition and they don't have to make a bunch of different ones for different states. So it was always, when we were learning about a new textbook adoption, it was always, well, you're the teacher, you pick and choose what you want and you make the best lessons you can. And I'm like, all right, there's a lot to pick from. So what am I even doing? Well, with the Teacher Clarity Playbook, what I loved about it was it focused on taking the standard, which is your finish line. It's the end. It's where you want your kids to be when you're done, not the beginning. So you take the standard that you're focusing on, and then you break it down into concepts and skills. So by taking, for example, this is one that I did with my 6th graders. I have my standard here: cite textual evidence to support analysis of what the text says explicitly, as well as inferences drawn from the text. So I took that standard and I was able to say, okay, what's the thing that the kids need to know? Like, what do they have to know? They have to know textual evidence. They have to know what a main idea is. That's like a thing. It's a concept. Now, how do the students get there? That's the how, the skill. What are they doing? Well, they're analyzing, they're citing, they're creating inferences. So by taking that one long sentence and breaking it down to what are the things that the kids need to understand versus what are the things that the kids need to do, I was able to make a flow of lessons that built on their skills. So I was able to start where I knew where my students were, and I could build from there. Now, breaking things down from concepts and skills, it's the same as doing declarative knowledge and procedural knowledge. So declarative knowledge is when you know facts about things, you understand a concept. So the concept of what is a main idea, that's more of like this thing that requires you to explain, versus a procedural skill where it's how you're doing something. So I always remember a procedural skill, like with my sons, is, okay, it's time to go brush your teeth. So they know the procedure of how to go brush their teeth. We've gone over that procedural knowledge, and now I can just tell him, go brush your teeth. And I know that he knows the steps and he'll get it done. Now, I love this, Lisa.
So I shared this after this school year, and it says, what if I told you that I had students who were labeled problem kids engaged in learning? So being an online teacher, I had some students in my class who are actually expelled from their schools and came to my school in my class, and they were loving EduProtocols. And I challenge you to pick your best lesson for student engagement, and then do that lesson. And then the next day, do an EduProtocol, but don't tell the kids that it's an EduProtocol. And you'll start to see, like, even if, oh, they're not going to love the EduProtocol as much as my lesson, they will. They always know which ones are EduProtocols. But while Jen was doing all this during the pandemic, I went to my first IAQ meeting in January of 2020. And remember, our shutdown was in March. So I thought, hey, I'll try this. I can do this online. And so, and I learned I could adapt them, the EduProtocols, easily online. And also, after you train the students, they know what to expect. When they see that EduProtocol, they know what they're going to do after you've trained them, and they know what's expected of them. And the great thing I love about EduProtocols too is that you can start from where they are and build from there. And so later on, I'm going to show you how I was able to adapt some EduProtocols. All right.
You know what, Lisa, when you added this slide deck, I don't know if you realized, but you really did touch on, after you train them, they know what to expect and what's expected of them. That is such a procedural thing, because with my EduProtocols, we smart start them to get the procedural knowledge. Then I can start adding in the content, and I can expect them to, do the more declarative side of it, but they've already got the procedure down. So let's look at declarative and procedural knowledge, right? So the declarative is the concept. It's the thing that they have to explain. They have to understand it and explain it, versus the procedural, which is the thing that they have to do. So when you're looking at flowing your lessons so that you're sequencing and building on a skill, that's where the EduProtocols start coming in. So you can see that I have for my sixth graders, first I wanted to start with, let's cite key details and explicitly from the text. I wanted right there answers, because I thought, that they have to be able to cite. What does that look like? What's the procedure for citing? Then I looked at the second part. Once we got used to and comfortable with having students produce that, right there answer, then I wanted them to make the inferences. So I wanted them to be able to do the, educated guessing or assumptions of why an author's writing what they're teaching, what do they want to teach you? And then the third one was determining a main idea using all the skills that we had practiced before of gathering information with the details. Then we can start explaining. So my flow of lessons was almost like going upstairs. I started at the bottom, and then we kind of built and went up. So one thing I would like us to try, it's going to be about 10 minutes, is let's actually try it. Let's take this 5th grade standard, right? It's Common Core standard. Determine 2 or more main ideas of a text and explain how they are supported by key details, and then summarize the text. So what we're going to do with this one, this is the bit.ly. You can click on it if you're already on my slide. If not, I can add it to the chat if it hasn't been added already. But I'd like us to try. So let's take just a simple standard like this one, break it down together, and then we'll have a resource for later that you can always refer back to if you're interested. And then one thing I want to add is a lot of these pictures on my slide deck are linked. So like on slide 7, just so you know, this picture of my planning document, I added a blank one. So for those of you that said you were going to do the book study on teacher clarity, I've already made a unit planner for you that you can use if you'd like. Okay, so we are on the thick slide. So this one was the bit.ly/thick map. But this is an EduProtocol in itself. So you can use EduProtocols anywhere. Basically what a thick slide is it's a way for students to show what they know without just writing a paragraph or filling out a worksheet. It adds a lot of that UDL stuff to it. So we're working together, we're collaborating. You can add pictures and GIFs and videos and just different things that you want the students to do. So I love thick slides. So if you can just go ahead and claim a slide, any slide. I've added 86 of them. I don't even think we have 86 people here. Oh, we have 84. Oh my goodness, awesome. All right, so just pick a slide if you'd like to participate. One quick management tip with this one is, Lisa has some really good ones. But I really love this grid view because then I can go as a teacher, I can go and see like, okay, well, I see some students still on slide 1 and 2. I need them to start moving. So I might go and have some conversations with them. Kids can't hide, you know, I can see where they are. But here's your first step to this thick slide. Please take slide number 1, highlight this standard. You can just, you know, copy paste the standard. Go to your slide, make sure you claim it, put your name on it or some kind of, you know, notion that we know that it's been claimed. And then all you're going to do is just paste in the standard to the first part here. So that way you have the standard on your slide. Now on a thick slide, you might have the student put the title of their thing that they're reading or watching. You might have them write a quote or something. Maybe a main idea would go right here, you know, but I just would like you to paste the standard so you have it. Awesome. So that's great. Yeah, you'll have to readjust the font a little bit. But perfect. I can see that you guys are getting on your slide. You're pasting your standard. So the standard is determine 2 or more main ideas of a text and explain how they're supported by key details. Summarize the text. So once you have your standard in there, this table is editable. So let's talk about what is the concepts or the declarative knowledge that students need to have for this standard. Well, they have to know main idea, that's a thing. So I'm gonna write main idea on the concept side. And then the skill side is what's the procedure to do that? What is the procedure? So they have to be able, like the skill would be like kind of the determining part of it. So there's got to be some kind of procedural thing that they can do in order to explain the main idea. Okay, so determine or cite. Those are like the skills, the procedural things. So we're just simply breaking down our standard before we actually do a flow of lessons. So I'll give you guys a few minutes to kind of get that started. Awesome. Perfect. We've got our standards down. So yeah, just go to your table, see if there's anything else that you can see. And if you guys want to share out in the Zoom, you're more than welcome to unmute and share some ideas or ask some questions at this time. Did I break Google? The fixed slide just disappeared. Heavy traffic and won't connect. All right, it's probably because I have 86 slides on here. It's amazing. How funny, I did not know there was a limit. Okay, not a problem. All right, oh, it's coming back. Perfect, okay, if you don't mind, slide number 4, I'm just gonna click on that one. Excellent, so we've got the concepts, the main idea. The skills are gonna be, they're gonna be determining, they're gonna be citing, they're gonna be explaining. If you added another little row down here, you could also include that they're going to have to support. Like, how do you do that? That's like a, you know, a skill that the kids are going to have to know what you as a teacher expect. Remember that teacher clarity. Okay, so then we're going to look at our flow of concepts and skills. So what is the first thing that you think your students need to be able to do in order to get started on this standard? Like I said, the standard's your finish line, it's not the beginning. So we're going to look at taking a piece of your standard. So maybe they have to cite some key details, right? Or you can even do like a 3 reads approach. You could say, that students are going to be reading and pulling out facts, examples, and information from a reading. If you're going even as basic as that, like, do your students know what a declarative sentence is? So if you're finding that your students are struggling to pull out sentences within a reading, then you could even use the EduProtocol sentence parts, which I found my students really loved. It helped them see each individual sentence in a passage as being, unique in its purpose for the writing, instead of just seeing one big thing. You could even say, you know what, I think we'll just watch some videos and we're going to pull out some key facts and examples from that video, because what are they trying to teach you in this video? We're not even reading at this point. We're just practicing that skill, the procedural knowledge of finding facts. Okay, I have, for the sake of time too, I love that you guys are breaking these down. I'm sorry that Google's being a little weird. Perfect. Let me show you an example of my completed slide. I just added it to slide 2. So you're gonna flow your concepts and skills. You've got determine key details from the text. Then we're gonna explain how ideas support key details, and then we're gonna summarize the details. So this could be a flow of lessons that I'm doing with this one standard. And this could take a week, it could take 2 weeks, it could take as long as I feel that we need to, because I'm going to throw in those EduProtocols. So instead of just hitting the one standard, I might be hitting a bunch of different ones because of my EduProtocols, which we'll talk about that more. So in my notes section, I'm already thinking about, okay, if I want them to know, like, write their answers, I need them to know basic basic declarative, like recall type stuff. So I might start with a fast and curious EduProtocol. I need them to be able to recall information. Sentence parts, right? So that would be like a DOK level 1, it's recall. Then after that, we can bump it up to a DOK level 2 where they're making meaning of information. We'll do some thick slides like this. And then from lesson 3, let's bump it up even more. Let's do a cyber sandwich so that students are collaborating more. Maybe I'm wanting them to do more procedural things with annotations and whatnot. So.
And Jen, when you were talking about possibly watching a video and pulling out key details, I thought Bukachuka.
Yes. So when you're lesson planning this stuff, you're already thinking like, oh, that's an EduProtocol I can do there. And then I'm kind of hitting multiple kids, because not everyone's a reader, not everyone's a writer. Some kids are more visual, auditory, and especially for myself, if I can read it and I can see it, I'm there. If I could do it, even better, right? So I like the multiple means of representation. So that's a lot of that UDL. Okay, so back to my our main slide deck here. Just because we're throwing computers in the mix isn't necessarily going to make our lessons out of the park, right? We're not going to hit a home run. So Hattie's research on computers and student achievement actually has a low effect size of 0.34. So remember, 0.4 was the average year of growth. If you use computers as the main lesson, like here's the computer, go on the website, do this ed puzzle, it's a 0.34. They're not really gaining if you're just using computers for the sake of using a computer. But according to Sonny Magani and his research, when computers and tech are utilized as a support to high quality instruction, if it's used as a support, then there's very impressive great gains in student achievement. So he's claiming there's about 2 years worth of growth if we're using computers as a support to strong instruction and learning strategies. And this link here is to his white paper if you're interested, and you can read a little bit about it. Now that we've got our standard kind of broken down, we know we've got declarative knowledge, we've got procedural knowledge. Now I need to think about, well, how am I going to give this information to students? And you're looking at UDL. So this planning with universal design learning is a picture link, and that was created by Kim Vogie. It's amazing. She kind of breaks down all of the different parts of your planning process when you're looking at creating a lesson or a unit. And then there's also the EduProtocols website here, which there are some lesson frames on there that you can download. All you have to do is create an account. They have all their free lesson frames that you can start with, EduProtocols. So I wanted to add this. What if I told you with EduProtocols that no student can hide? So you know what I mean? When the student doesn't perform or they copy and cheat and you don't notice till later through grading, and then you think, oh, if only I had more time. With EduProtocols, I mean, there is no cheating, really. So you have like the thick slide that we just did, where we were all together on a slide deck. Maybe I'm looking at slide 16 to get some ideas because I'm kind of lost a little bit. So in the moment, I have supports while I'm working. It's okay. It's okay if we share ideas at this point, because in my lesson right now, I don't care if you share ideas. This is new, like let's practice together. Then students have to perform at the time that you're giving it to them. So with the thick slide EduProtocol, my students create the EduProtocol, but I don't just have them turn it in. We go over it as a class. We display it. We talk about it. Maybe I give them 6 seconds of a takeaway that they learned. So everyone sees the slide, and I'm listening to a student speak, which is something that is so needed right now. Like my 7th and 8th graders, they hide in their hoods, you know, and I want to see them. I want to hear them. I want them to articulate. I want them to stand up for themselves. So I'm asking them to defend, like, why did you do what you do? Or whatever it is that the lesson is. But with EduProtocols, there's always this public speaking and sharing aspect to it. So far, do you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns here?
If you could go back a slide, I
Sure.
just want to point out a Twitter handle there. So you see that
Oh,
she
yes.
tagged me, but there's another person here. This is what, Ariana Hernandez?
Yes.
And she works at the same school as Jennifer. She is a first-year teacher, and she has done some really, truly amazing things. She's doing presentations on how she's using EduProtocols with science and moving through the DOKs and planning. And if you're not following her, you need to follow her. She is amazing.
Yes. Yes, she's rocking the science world right now. She'll probably be writing a book.
I know. Watch. She'll probably be the next author.
Yeah,
I don't know
she's
for
awesome.
sure, but
Yes. Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, Paula. Okay. So, sorry, I see something in the text before I move on. It says, skill would be know how to read a topic sentence and supporting sentences. Understand how to read the difference between a supporting sentence and topic sentence. The skill would be the procedure of what you expect your student to do. So yeah, if they're going to be supporting something, then you already have like claim evidence reasoning, right? That would be the procedure. This is how we do the thing. Here's the procedure. We're going to do a CER. This is how we do the thing. We're going to do an Iron Chef. But in order for a student to successfully navigate a CER writing that you expect, we have to start smart. We have to give them something that they don't have to learn and then learn how to do the procedure, right? Like I'm asking my son to like make toothpaste and then use the toothpaste to brush his teeth. I just wanted to brush his teeth. So we'll just do something easy that he already knows how to do. I'm going to use some strawberry flavored toothpaste, right? And then maybe we'll move on and like, let's look at what kind of things that we can use to brush our teeth. That would be like the concept stuff, like that's later. So yeah, you want them to have that clear procedure first so that they can do it. And it's usually very fun. So you kind of get them hooked in there. Okay, so real quick with the lesson planning, this is huge to me. I love it because I'm not going to ask my son to go create toothpaste because that's like a DOK 4. I'm going to start with DOK 1. We're going to talk about the basic knowledge of the thing that we're learning. Maybe it's vocabulary. Maybe it's facts. Maybe it's, identifying what a detailed sentence is. So I might have them do a fast and curious on just sentences where it's like, a declarative sentence that would say like the sky is blue or whatever. So then they know like, oh, that's a declarative because they're stating something versus why is the sky blue? And that's more of an interrogative sentence. So I want students to be able to pick out facts from, just nonsense or nothing that, because I know with my 6th graders, what they would do sometimes is they would, as a detailed sentence, they would highlight like the hook. Did you know? And it was like, no, that's kind of a hook. It's not really a fact. They're not stating a fact. They're giving an opinion. They're trying to draw you in. That is not a fact, right? So I would have them do this so that they can better break down a passage to find actually important information and kind of wipe away all the fuzzy stuff that makes writing interesting. Okay, so once I'm looking at my DOKs in my lesson planning, I'm always going to start at DOK 1 or 2. And then as I'm building my flow, then I'm going to start thinking about DOK 3. And I love this example of the different levels. And it makes it real easy, right? You could just kind of see it there. The next thing that I'm thinking about with my DOK is how am I using technology to support my lesson? I'm not using it as the main thing of my lesson. I'm using it as a support. So if I'm asking my students to do a fast and curious, I could be looking at a DOK1 because I'm recalling, but I can easily jump up to DOK2, and I can also make sure that I'm including Magana's research as far as the different areas of tech use. I can go from T1 translation, which is very basic, like instead of taking a paper pencil test, ABCD choice, I'm doing quizzes. That would be translational. I'm just doing, instead of sending a message or a letter through the mail, I'm sending an email. That's translational. I'm just using tech as a replacement for paper or analog. Then I'm looking at transformational. So I'm taking my, instead of just having them write a paragraph or draw a picture, I might have them on the computer doing a thick slide. That's going to be a T2, that's transformational. So they're producing something with the knowledge. That's deeper learning. So when I'm thinking about my lesson flow, I want to always think about starting slow for my kids, especially if it's something brand new. And then I'm also looking at my technology use. How am I supporting my lesson? I want to jump into that T2 because that's where the growth is. That's where the messy learning is. And I love it. And it's fun. And the kids love it. Okay. So Lisa, tell me about this one.
So fast and curious. So this is a good way that you can track how you're doing with your lessons other than looking at the student work. If you need to show your principal or other teachers why they should try EduProtocols, here you go. You've got data.
Love the data. So again, if the more comfortable you become with your EduProtocols, then you're looking at how they can be used to go deeper and deeper into learning. And that's what that T2, T1, T2, T3 is.
So if you hear of a rack and stack, this is what it is. So it's just basically after the students start doing their smart starts and learning how to do them, which please go slow, don't go faster than your students can learn the procedures. You can start using different EduProtocols together in the same lesson. And like Jen said, you're kind of exposing them to those different modalities too. So if they don't get it one way, they get it another too.
Yes. Adam Moeller is an awesome educator out in Ohio. He does social studies, middle school social studies, but I really feel like you could do this. You could do what he does in high school and in elementary school. So he's doing the same thing. He's sequencing his lessons so that you're building up the DOK. Oh, Norma, I see that T3 reminds me of the SAMR. Yes and no, right? Because the SAMR is great because it's like that leveled thing. Like, well, first you're stepping into the pool and then you're taking a few more steps deeper the more you use tech. What I love about the T3 is it's taking apart, what does that look like when you're at the beginning of the pool? What does that actually look like? And then he goes into the research on it. And then you got the EduProtocols to back you up. So yes, it is very similar to the SAMR, but it is so much more useful. And you guys can see that in his book for sure. Okay, I love this. You're the world's best trier.
So, okay. So I went to my first IEQ conference and I got to meet Kim Bogie, and because Jen's like, you've got to meet her. You've got to meet this author. And I'm like, okay. And then you always hear about EduProtocols, but I never really tried it until the pandemic hit. And I thought, what do I have got to lose? And then I realized how powerful it really was. So those of you who are EdTech TOSAs and you're trying to get some buy-in there, maybe say, hey, do you want to help me try out this new EduProtocol? And the teachers are like kids and they get to experience it for themselves and realize how fun it is. Because I've heard it a lot like, oh, they're just hyperdocs. No, they're not. And, those of you who've been in teaching for a while, like thinking maps, they're like thinking maps on steroids. You're training the kids. And, here's a Smart Start menu here. I would just try, like Buka Chuka is probably one of the easiest to try. They watch a video, they write about it, and you can give them, like 5 minutes or less. And Kripo talks about that too. Like if you give them 10, 15 minutes, they're only going to work the last few minutes. So,
you have to ramp it fast. And if you can get it the first time because you were too fast in a way, then you're just like, that's okay, because we're gonna do it again. Ready? Go.
Right.
Upbeat, it's fast.
And you start changing videos and things, and you can really see. And then some EduProtocols, the kids catch on a lot faster than others. So like a Bukachuka, they could learn pretty fast. Cyber Sandwich is going to take some time. I remember Kim Vogie in one of her sessions talked about Cyber Sandwich. It took like, at least a class period or several days for them to get that concept. But you definitely want to start off with things that are fun. And we're going to start the beginning of the school year. Some of you have already started, but it's such a great, fun way to get to know your students. Like do a sketch and tell, share your favorite movie or favorite scene from a movie, or what would your dream vacation be, or what's your dream pet? And you'll see students share unicorns and things like that. So it's a really great, fun way for the students to learn the procedure, while by giving them something with a really low cognitive load, something that's really fun to do, and everyone kind of gets to know each other.
Yes. And what I found using EduProtocols is I don't use all of them. Like, it's not like I use all of them. I use the ones that I kind of like, the ones that I'm using because I'm the creator of my lessons. So I know what I want my students to do. So maybe the Cyber Sandwich isn't my favorite because it takes too long. Maybe I want them to do a Parafly instead, so then I kind of tweak it around. I'll start creating my own EduProtocols because I'm like, I like the aspect of this one, but I want that. So then I'll mix around. One quick thing on slide 7, I just wanted to show you, I forgot. The anchor standards in EduProtocols, Kim Vogie also created this document where if you're like, well, I don't even know what I would use this for, then you can kind of look at her little checklist. So she has math, science, Marzano, she got all kinds of stuff here. She's just amazing. So you can look and see like, oh, Cyber Sandwich, I could use it for reading, but then if I go into math, I could use a Cyber Sandwich for math if I need to make sense of problems, right? So it's just a good resource to have if you're thinking like, which ones do I want to really spend my time on right now? So on slide 7, that was just a link there. And then Lisa, do you want me to stop sharing and you could take over?
Okay, wish me luck.
All right.
Here we go. Let's try. Oh, whoops. Oh boy. Hold on, everybody. Probably a good time for questions.
Yeah, the protocols that are particularly well suited for science. I'm going to post a link to my friend's Twitter so you can see what she's working on. And I would say she uses a lot of Iron Chef, Cyber Sandwich, thick slides, because she's really about the explaining the process and making those observations, making hypotheses. So I will post her Twitter in just a second.
Okay, did it work? Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can. Good.
All right. So I know I'm an online teacher, but I want to tell all of you at the beginning of last school year, I was teaching 3rd grade, and about 2 days before the beginning of school, I still don't have Chromebooks. Now, remember, everyone, the Chromebooks were all sent home for the pandemic, and then we had new students start our school. So my IT guy comes to me and says, Lisa, you're not going to have Chromebooks to start a school. It's probably going to take about 3 weeks. And I thought, 3 weeks? Like, I wanted to do EduProtocols. I wanted to do all these things. And of course, Jen is like, you can still do EduProtocols. You can do them on paper. I'm like, oh, you're right. So what I did was, and this was 3rd grade. It's the beginning of the year after a pandemic. So I was lucky. I was kind of just working on nouns, verbs, and adjectives with third graders and getting that concept. And so I took an 8 parts paragraph, and you notice I chunked it down to 3 parts paragraph. And so I printed them out. And luckily I did have a smart board in my room. And so I would bring it up on the smart board. And the cool thing about that, you know, when you're doing it on paper and you have a smart board or you have a document cam, is that you can share the pen with your students. You can start to teach them and show them, and then also call on a student and have them come up and write a section, or then they can then hand the pen to someone else too. Now, you might want to use hand sanitizer or wipe it in between, but you know, I'm just saying you can share the pen with them. And notice here that they underlined the part of speech with a highlighter or with a colored pencil. And so finally, 3 weeks later, their first day getting their Chromebook, the only thing I had to show them really, other than logging in and all of that, was how to highlight the words for the text. They transferred that knowledge immediately to the Chromebook. They had no problem because they already had the procedure down on paper. So some of you may not want to start the first day with Chromebooks. This can be an alternative. Hopefully, you know, you do have access to Chromebooks and not like I did, but you know, I'm kind of glad that that happened because it forced me to see Chromebooks another way. And we've all been through so much and so many different situations over the past couple of years that it's so good, because if you are using the Chromebooks and all of a sudden your Wi-Fi goes out for the day, which that happened to Jen, back to paper. And so these are just different pictures, and I am doing them online now too. So I have some ideas for management and also some ideas for adapting. Oh, and I also wanted to share this. So Jen and I, we presented with Caripo back in November, and I was really worried. I told him, you're not gonna like the way that I do 8 parts paragraphs. And he said, why? And I said, well, first of all, I just start with 3 parts and then I build from there. And he said, that's fine. You can do that. And I thought, whoa, okay, great. So Caripo even said, it's okay. If you're starting off and you find most of your students do not know their parts of speech, start where they are and build from there. And so I wanted to share this tip, like with the cyber sandwich, working with 3rd graders and 4th graders. I have the kids write their summaries in their section, but then I ask them to look at their notes and maybe look at another student's notes. So sometimes I'll tell them, oh, you have to highlight someone else's notes. And it kind of gives that other student, you know, props like, hey, they really liked what I wrote. And then you could see the different colors they're highlighting here. And then they would also go through and talk about and number what they highlighted, like how they're going to do their group summary. And sometimes with the cyber sandwich, I will have, you know, one student summarize from the text, another student summarize from the text, and then the middle student will summarize what the 2 students wrote. And then I'll rotate that student in and out, you know, so that way they're not always doing it, but that way they're kind of getting used to being able to summarize, you know, do the group summary. Does that make sense? I'm sorry. Okay, and then Jen, go ahead and share this one for your slides.
It's just a little tip. So when I have my kids working on a thick slide or thin slide or anything that's like a whole class shared document, I'll do the grid view like this and walk around. One thing I find with doing EduProtocols is I'm never sitting, which I love. I got my steps in and I'm talking with students. I can see the hidden students because I can see what they're working on. I can hear what they're talking about. grid view is great because then you can see if a little head is on the wrong slide, right? You have the little pictures, so you can manage that. And then if you go to the next slide, one thing that I struggled with moving from 6th grade where I had 35 kids to 7th and 8th grade where I'm teaching multiple class periods was like collecting the shared documents. It was killing me, my email, because I'd always tell them, okay, file, make copy, share with your partner and share with me. So I would have in my email a bajillion emails from shared documents. It was a mess. So one way to kind of take care of that and have a really great place where you can go to reference is to create a Google form where students can actually submit their link via the form and it will organize it very nicely in a sheets. So if you go to slide 31, Lisa, you can see students can pick their slide, their period, and then how you set up your form, collect the names. I have a checkbox where who's working on the slide with you. And then right there is my like the turn in, right? It's like my turn in tray.
So early this morning, and I'm sure you experienced it too, I started getting this rush of ideas and things that I would want to tell someone who's trying out EduProtocols. And so I kind of made these 2 slides. And management, especially when you're working with students in lower grades, or maybe students who just have trouble going to different slides and putting their name on it, put their names on the slides ahead of time. That way they know to go straight to their slide and start. If you have a new student, so let's say you started the Smart Starts and everything, and it's now November and you get a new student. Well, you're not really doing Smart Starts too much anymore. You're getting into content. So I would partner that new student with another student to share a slide with until they became comfortable with that EduProtocol, and then they could do that. Distract the distractor. I learned that from Cult of Pedagogy. If you have a student who just loves to help run the show, then make them your teacher helper. When you introduce the EduProtocol, have them tell everyone which slide they're on, or watch the time. Be your timekeeper, and watching the time too. I love Nearpod as well because you can kind of set the time and then it submits on everyone. Or I'll just have my phone and say, Siri, set a timer for 5 minutes. Try your EduProtocol with coworkers. They make the best students to help you like troubleshoot things. And they get to experience what it's like. And you get more buy-in at your school when, you all get to play with it. So some of you are administrators or TOSAs, use an EduProtocol for a training, use a cyber sandwich to start looking at an article or things like that. If your EduProtocol doesn't work, ask yourself these questions. Number 1, do they need more procedural practice? Did you move too fast from the Smart Start? Number 2, do you need a different EduProtocol? I went to the session with Scott Petrie, and he was talking about ListenWise, which is a really cool website for podcasts. And I tried a Bukachuka. Well, did not work very well. And so I messaged him, and all the authors are really great at giving you that support. And he told me, try a cyber sandwich. Well, I tried a cyber sandwich. It worked great. So if what you're trying to teach them, it doesn't working too much, look at what EduProtocol you're using. Also try a different platform. I went to this training beginning of June with Caripo, and he used other platforms for Fast and Curious besides quizzes, and it blew my mind. I didn't know you could do that. Sharing, create a shared Google Drive. If you make a template, share a copy in a drive and share with your staff. That way you can all start building and sharing out. Have a support person, find your Jennifer Goodman. And then if you can't find them at your school, reach out on Twitter or IAQ, or, we're here, reach out to the authors, share with different grade levels, schools, And I always like to see what different grade levels are doing to get some ideas. Remember, EduProtocols are always changing. I'll ask someone, are you going to EduProtocol training? Oh, I did that 2 years ago. I did the EduProtocols. Well, those of you who know, like, it's always changing. Don't introduce too many EduProtocols too fast. The procedure is important. Modeling risk-taking. How can you expect your students to take risks to learn if you don't even model it for them? And what I said earlier, some EduProtocols take longer for students to learn, so please be patient. You know, like a cyber sandwich, that's going to take you probably a few hours, so break it up over days, please. Get ready for teachable moments. You're going to have a lot of them with EduProtocols. And I say unscripted questions. Students will ask questions that are not on the worksheet because you're not using worksheets anymore. Management, if you have a problem, if something happens, I learn from my students and I'm like, okay, I need to make sure I switch from I have the slide deck on view and then switch it to edit right before we start and then switch it back to view when we're done. So they're not erasing Billy's work. Okay. And then I always remember to answer questions, but if another student is answering a question, don't get in their way. I've learned to step out of the way and let the students teach each other too. And quote Maya Angelou, do the best you can until you know better. And then when you know better, do better. So you've got to be patient with yourself. And here, I know we're running out of time, but Jennifer, go ahead and share about this day. What happened to you?
Oh, a super fun one to try is the random emoji power paragraph. So you'll get students who are writing 5 sentences in a paragraph, but they're actually going to be writing because they publicly share their writing, and it's super fun. So I love the random emoji power paragraph as a writing practice, creative writing. And then I can throw in, once they get it, I can start throwing in like things that I want them to do. They're going to use an A positive, as Karippa likes to add, so I'll have them write specific sentence structures. This example is, well, the power was out. There were just no lights. They had their Chromebooks, but there was no internet. So I had nothing. So what I did was I was able to take my computer connected to my phone, so I had my internet on my phone, and then I just walked around and showed them the emoji. But what I did to make it more interesting on paper so that it's very public is it was kind of like one of those, I don't know what they're called, but it's like you write the first sentence and then you switch seats, and then you write the second sentence and then you switch seats. So as I was showing them random emoji that would pop up, they had to write a sentence about it. But then they had to look at someone else's writing to make sense to continue the story. So it was really fun, passed the time while the power was out, and it got kids, laughing, giggling, writing, and enjoying their day. So that's one way to, adapt.
So here's an 8 parts paragraph. So if you have in your grade level standards how, they're supposed to know this many parts of speech, but then you realize in your class, from the pandemic and everything, that they don't. It says with modifications. And so that's what I did. I started off with 3 parts and then worked up to 4 parts, worked up to 5 parts, worked up to 8 parts. And the great thing about that is that you are building and you're also reviewing. You're doing that spiral review at the same time. You're not saying, why don't you know adjectives? We covered that 2 weeks ago. Well, you're not even giving them a chance to forget by doing this. And then there's sentence parts. So these EduProtocols are very powerful. You can see, this in the math reps, you're covering so many different standards all at once. And that's when you're making a lot of that growth, is with these EduProtocols. Okay, I need breath. Another thing I did to adapt, I took a screenshot. This is online, students. I took a screenshot of the glossary and put it in between each slide deck, and I trained my students. So by the, within a few months, they were writing the definition, copying that from the glossary, and then writing facts and characteristics, putting in their picture of example, and non-example. And these are third graders. So that's a video of them live doing that. And again, math reps, those are so powerful. You know, if your students only know up to 1,000 place value and they're supposed to know up to the millions by the end of the year, you could start having a number of the day with thousands, and then the next week or whenever they're ready, 10,000s, and work your way up. And that really worked well. I wanted to share these two. This is one of my fellow Q board members. Notice on Twitter how the students are working on paper. And there's a student with a document camera there. And they're sharing the pen with Carippo there. And Nearpod's really cool too. All right. And there was just one more thing I wanted to share. So on the state testing, you notice there are more and more activities where students have to listen, like to work on listening comprehension. And so I tried using EduProtocols with songs or even podcasts. And so I had a song, and if you click on this here, it'll have that song Smile. And the students were just listening to the song and then writing down all the similes that they heard. And they're putting pictures with the similes. So, and then about a week later, we started learning about metaphors. And I really love these songs. Now, always listen to the song first, make sure it's appropriate. But I love using that authentic learning. And I love these that it shows the lyrics. So the kids are not only listening to the song, but they're seeing the lyrics. And you could even do something like this. So he's listing the metaphors he heard in each song and highlighted them yellow, but then he's also putting in similes that he heard as well. And then Scott Petrie, he introduced me to this really cool website. It's called ListenWise, and they can listen to the podcast, which I'll click on that. So they have different podcasts that students can listen to, and you can search by content or by grade level, and you can work on that listening comprehension with them. And again, Cyber Sandwich works really well with podcasts. Oh, okay.
You made it, Lisa.
I know we did it. Other questions? Or anything anyone would like to share that they tried an EduProtocol with that they really liked, or a new idea they want to try?
I just added the link to the session again in the chat as well, for those of you that need it.
Will there be a recording of this? There was so much. I would love to watch this 5 more times.
Yeah, they are recording it. So I'm assuming it'll be available on the SCED website. And
Okay.
Also Lisa and I are like on Twitter all the time. We love like sharing and chatting and just lesson ideas. We're kind of weird. We're the weekend warrior teachers.
As someone who's never done Twitter, but am going to have someone teach me to do it, how do I find you on Twitter?
Slide 1 has our
Okay.
little handle. So
Okay.
all you have to do is go to the twitter.com and create your own account. So that way you can save people. It's almost like it's like Facebook in a way, but instead of having, lots of pictures and just, I don't know, it's different than Facebook at the same time. So it's just social media, but it's just a way to collect people and then see what they're sharing. So when you're using Twitter for the purpose of collecting ideas and collaborating with other educators, then when you follow people like Lisa and I, and then follow other people that we're following, then you start getting your feed, like just like a scrolling feed of people posting their sessions, posting ideas, student work, thoughts, aha moments. And it's not like, that trash Twitter that you might find if you get outside of the education realm.
Okay.
So yeah, it's really such a great resource, and people are so nice and they'll reply back. If you ask them like, hey, I saw this, what is this about? And they'll reply back. It's fun.
And if you think Kim Vogie or Adam Moeller or Scott Petrie or John Carippo will not answer your questions, oh, they will. They get back to you within a couple hours. I mean, when they say they give you that lifetime support, they really do.
Yes. And then very last slide on our slide deck, if you could give us some feedback on our session so that we can make it better next time, I would really appreciate that. It's just a link. It's under the feedback, please.
Yes. Kim Vogie is presenting today. And then there's Robert Mayfield. I want to see his session. He's talking about different variations of doing the Iron Chef. So now, I will confess, I do not know all the EduProtocols. I don't. And then now we have these new hybrid versions coming out. So you only need to learn them as fast as your students are learning them. When they start to get it, then okay, let's find a new one. So yes, we are here for you. And
Thank you. Thank you everyone for coming, and thank you Lisa and Jennifer